Welcome, curious minds, to another deep dive. That 66% figure, it really hits home, doesn't it? It honestly feels like trying to parent in a digital whirlwind sometimes. A new app pops up, every other Tuesday? It's really no wonder a recent survey highlighted that, yeah, a staggering 66% of parents believe parenting is tougher now than maybe 2 decades ago. And technology, that's named as a primary factor. So today, we're plunging right into that very topic, this ever changing digital world and how families are navigating it. Our mission for this deep dive is really to unpack the complexities of parental safety and, well, surveillance software. We're going to explore the motivations behind why parents use these tools. We'll look at the surprisingly diverse perceptions from both parents and their children, and
Yeah,
really consider the broader implications for privacy in this, rapidly evolving digital landscape. That's definitely a nuanced discussion, and we're excited to bring you the key insights.
absolutely. And to guide us through this pretty intricate subject, we've pulled from some crucial sources. Our core material includes a research brief from the Digital Wellness Lab that gives us a focused look at current parental surveillance practices. And we'll also be drawing insights from a commentary by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, which discusses the fundamental human right to privacy. So our goal is to extract the most critical insights to help you, our listener, really understand this evolving landscape.
Okay, let's dive in then. Parents are clearly feeling immense pressure in this digital age, and they're employing various mediation techniques to manage their children's online lives. We can sort of distinguish these into three main types. First, there's restrictive mediation. That's, setting clear rules to limit screen time or specific content.
Right.
Then you have active mediation, which involves discussing, explaining media content, trying to guide a child's choices.
More conversational.
And finally, co-use, meaning you're actually using media together with your children.
Yeah, sitting down and watching or playing together. But what's fascinating here, and this is key, is that surveillance isn't just a side note. It's a really significant subtype of this mediation. The research provides some, well, eye-opening statistics, especially for parents of younger children, say ages 5 to 11. An astounding 75% of these parents report checking the websites and apps their child uses. 75%.
Wow.
And 72% use parental controls to restrict screen time. Nearly half, 49%, look at call records or text messages. And 33%, a third, track their child's location using GPS. These aren't, fringe practices anymore. They're becoming remarkably common.
That's a really significant adoption rate for these tools. It's clear parents are feeling that pressure. But what specific fears or maybe perceived benefits are driving this heavy reliance on these digital tools? Is it just safety, or is there something more nuanced going on?
Well, it seems to come down to a few core motivations. There are definitely significant concerns about internet safety, particularly social media interactions,
Hmm.
and there's a strong desire to curb what parents perceive as problematic use.
Hmm.
And here's an interesting sort of irony from the research is that these parental control apps, they actually send the most notifications during school hours.
Hmm. Really? During school?
Yeah, which just goes to show how, pervasive they've become.
Okay, so on the one hand, parents are driven by these very real concerns. But what about the immediate impact these apps have on the parents themselves? Does it actually help them feel better?
That's a crucial point. The research actually suggests that, yes, parental control software can reportedly decrease parental stress and increase their overall well-being. It seems to provide a kind of sense of support and security, especially maybe for parents whose children have been victimized online or perhaps who appear to be using media problematically. And some parents even interpret using this software as, a good parenting practice. And this perception, it's often further fueled by celebrity or organizational endorsements that suggest these tools are really the best option for keeping children safe.
Right, that good parent narrative. That's a powerful benefit for parents, that sense of support and security. But does the research offer any insights into whether that parental relief sometimes comes at the expense of, say, the child's autonomy or their sense of trust? And how do parents themselves view privacy in this whole context? Is there agreement there?
Well, that's where we see really varied parental views on privacy. It's not uniform at all. For some parents, the sheer amount of information provided by these monitoring apps can feel, well, overwhelming, excessive, almost like too much data.
Information overload.
Exactly. But then on the flip side, you have others who believe they have what they call unfettered access to their child's information, simply because, they own the device or pay the phone bill. It creates this whole spectrum of comfort with surveillance.
Okay, so we've explored the parental motivations, the varied perspectives on privacy, but a key part of this deep dive is understanding the full picture. So, what happens when these parental strategies, these tools, intersect with the children's actual lived experience? This is where the data reveals a truly significant disconnect between what parents intend and how children perceive these tools.
Right. So when we turn to the children's experiences, the picture becomes, well, starkly different. It reveals some truly surprising insights.
Yeah.
Let's start with those time and content management apps.
Yeah, the reviews from children and teens for these apps are overwhelmingly negative. A staggering 76% of the ratings were just 1 star.
76%, 1 star. Yeah. And their complaints prominently cited overly restrictive practices and a profound sense of privacy invasion. We're talking about children, noting that restrictions were so severe they couldn't even access required homework content sometimes. And many used terms like stalking to describe the feeling of the app.
Stalking. Wow, that word alone speaks volumes, doesn't it? It immediately tells you the depth of the negative emotional response here. And you can just imagine how this plays out. It can lead to resentment, strained parent-child relationships, especially when these restrictions are imposed without any input from the child or, a clear parental explanation for the reasoning behind it.
Exactly. And this is a pivotal takeaway, I think. Children aren't necessarily rejecting parental involvement entirely. They seem to be craving collaboration. The
Ah.
fact that only, 12% of positive reviews highlighted communication and negotiation, that tells us there's this massive untapped potential for parents to shift from control towards connection. That seems to be what kids truly respond to.
Right. Connection over control. Makes sense.
However, there is a nuance here, we should say. Some children and teens who actually admitted struggling with screen time did find the apps helpful for self-regulation. So it's complex.
Okay, so not entirely negative for everyone, but overwhelmingly so.
Precisely. Now moving to location tracking. While 33% of parents track younger children, that number is even higher for adolescents. About 50% report parental location monitoring. Half of teens.
Half? That's high.
It is. And what's really fascinating here is the discrepancy we see in some parent-child pairs. About 14% of children reported not being tracked when their parents actually said they were tracking them.
Wait, so the kids didn't even know?
Apparently not in those cases. That 14% discrepancy, it's more than just a number. It points to a kind of hidden breach of trust. Imagine the long-term relational damage when a child discovers they've been unknowingly monitored. This unsuspected surveillance, as the research calls it, can create this silent, insidious wedge in family relationships. It really erodes the foundation of trust.
That's a really profound finding on trust. And I guess perceptions of tracking must evolve with age, don't they? Like, younger children might initially have more positive views, maybe linking it to feeling safe, understanding why mom or dad wants to know where they are.
That's generally what the data suggests, yes. Younger kids might link it to safety, understand the parental benefits. But as children get older, those perceptions tend to become more negative. And trust in the tracker, or rather, trust of the person doing the tracking, becomes a really crucial factor in how they view it.
Trust again. It keeps coming back to trust.
It really does. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, there's a theory that while tracking apps are often marketed with this assurance of greater safety and freedom, they might inadvertently increase the suspicion of the world as a dangerous, fearful place.
How so?
Well, they could offer a kind of false sense of security, equating just knowing someone's location with them actually being safe, rather than, say, building independent safety strategies in youth.
Right, focusing on the tech instead of the skill.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yet, we do have to acknowledge the nuance here, too. Some children do express feeling more protected against, dramatic dangers. One child was quoted saying their parents should see if kids are robbed or kidnapped.
Wow.
These kinds of dramatic examples suggest that maybe the apps can make the world seem like a very dangerous place, where constant watch is necessary for safety.
So this brings us to a really fundamental question. What's the connection between all these family dynamics, these apps, and the broader concept of a human right to privacy? This idea, it really stems from the basic concept of privacy as the right to be let alone. That's an idea enshrined in Article 12 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It emphasizes an individual's autonomy and their control over their images, their experiences, their personal details.
And it's absolutely crucial to connect privacy to other core human rights. Think freedom of expression, assembly, association. Overbroad surveillance, whether it's in democratic or authoritarian nations, can definitely deter free expression. It leads to what are called chilling effects, where people basically self-censor their thoughts and actions out of fear of surveillance or some kind of reprisal.
Chilling effects. Can you give an example?
Sure, the sources mention, for instance, China tracking critics on social media, which can lead to harassment, even incarceration, and even democracies. After the Edward Snowden revelations back in 2013, platforms like Wikipedia and Facebook apparently saw a decrease in user discourse on, say, national security topics.
People got scared to talk.
It seems so. And a PE in America survey found that 40% of writers either actively avoided social media or actually stopped writing on certain issues, specifically due to surveillance fears.
40%. That's a stark illustration of the broader impact. And privacy is also deeply intertwined with equity and non-discrimination, right?
Absolutely. History shows us, unfortunately, how historically marginalized communities have been disproportionately affected by surveillance based on factors like religion and race.
You mean things like
Well, think about the NYPD and CIA surveillance of Muslim neighborhoods post 9/11. Or more recently, the use of drones and scraping social media data to monitor Black Lives Matter activists in 2020. Without privacy protection, surveillance can really exacerbate historical biases by unfairly targeting certain individuals or groups.
right. That makes sense.
And just think about how the number of truly private spaces has dramatically shrunk. It's because of the widespread proliferation of smartphones, cameras everywhere, mobile apps collecting data constantly. Commercial data collection is now ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
And AI plays a role too.
Oh, absolutely. Artificial intelligence further accelerates this trend because it creates an enormous demand for sensitive data to train algorithms. Many digital services, their business model relies on aggregating personal information, browsing history, geolocation, financial transactions, even biometrics. And they share it with advertisers, data brokers, other entities. And when companies combine data from multiple sources, they can predict highly sensitive details like an individual's political affiliation or maybe their health status. It's this vast web of interconnected information.
That's a staggering amount of data being collected on individuals, like every single day. This presents a real dilemma, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Most of us feel we have very few options, but to surrender personal information simply to participate in everyday activities, school, work, social events.
It feels unavoidable sometimes.
And what's more, this private sector data collection often serves to bolster government access to that same information, right? The government can sometimes get data from companies that it couldn't collect itself.
That's a major concern, yes. Which raises an important question. Is more surveillance inherently safer? Does collecting all this data actually make us safer?
What does the research suggest?
Well, it suggests probably not. While technology allows governments to easily collect data on millions of people, the vast majority of that data poses no actual public safety risk. It's just noise. And crucially, the more parties that have access to a dataset, government agencies, companies, maybe hackers, the higher the risks of unintended consequences, things like blackmail or doxing, which is, the public sharing of private info to harass someone or just general harassment.
So more data means more risk.
In many ways, yes. More potential points of failure or misuse. To align with human rights values, governments really need to tailor surveillance. It should be targeted to what is truly necessary and proportionate for legitimate public interests, without unduly infringing on the broader privacy rights of the entire population.
It's a critical distinction to make. Necessary and proportionate. And this all challenges our traditional lines of privacy, doesn't it? Like the old distinctions. In a world where police can place facial recognition cameras on poles outside homes, or fly drones over sidewalks and roads, or automatically scrape public-facing websites, does that old distinction between public and private areas even still make sense? It feels like the very definition of public is shifting under our feet.
It certainly seems to be blurring.
So we've certainly seen this clear separation in perspectives between parents and children regarding digital surveillance, a real disconnect. The research strongly suggests a shift is needed, moving beyond just, effective restriction and monitoring towards a more holistic approach, something that's being called digital parenting.
Exactly. And this shift towards digital parenting, it isn't just theoretical. It can take concrete shape through several strategies. These are things for both parents and app designers to think about. Things like scaffolding restrictions, you know what that means.
Like building support structures that you gradually remove.
Precisely. Controls that are gradually reduced and eventually removed as children develop their digital literacy and demonstrate responsibility. So, restrictions evolve as children learn digital skills. Also, actively including teens in the design process for new applications. Ask them what works.
Giving them a voice.
Yes. building peen risk coping strategies, not just blocking things, and fundamentally encouraging active parenting and open communication within the family, talking about it.
It sounds promising to hear about some unique applications that researchers are developing, like CoPS, TinaLease, and FamLink. These aren't just more monitoring tools, you're saying.
Right. They specifically aim to encourage self-regulation and active mediation of things like time limits and content. It sounds like they're trying to build that partnership into the technology itself.
Building partnership in, I like that.
Yeah. Ultimately, the conclusion seems clear. There's this vital need for parental monitoring practices and the applications themselves to evolve. They need to evolve in ways that truly encourage genuine child and teen buy-in to the safety practices parents want to implement. It really has to be about collaboration, not just control, and recognizing the child's developing agency, their growing independence.
Collaboration, not just control. That sums it up well. We've navigated a really complex landscape today, haven't we? Exploring this tension between a parent's, very understandable desire for safety and a child's evolving need for privacy and autonomy, especially in the digital age. It's crystal clear that while the digital world presents new and unique challenges, the conversation about how families navigate it together is more critical than ever.
Absolutely. This deep dive truly reveals how the very definition of what makes a good parent is shifting in the digital age. And the tools designed for protection, even when well-intentioned, can have these profound, sometimes unintended consequences on trust and even on a child's perceived sense of safety in the world itself. It's complex.
It really is. So we leave you, our listeners, with this final thought to chew on. How can we, as a society, balance that very real desire for parental safety with the fundamental human right to privacy for developing individuals? Especially when, as we discussed, the dangerous world narrative might actually be amplified by the very tools meant to protect them from it. That's a crucial question, isn't it? For families, for app designers, and for policymakers alike, as technology continues inevitably to shape all of our lives.